Welcome back. It's your boy Seth Guru Baxter with Makers Bar, where we're creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. With us today, we have a special guest, and I'm extremely excited. For some of our listeners and viewers, you might be extreme fans like myself, or you might be just kind of casual fans, or might have heard the name Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, that are affiliated with martial arts in the film industry. Well, for me, in growing up, Bruce Lee was kind of the epitome, and there's a number of other actors as well and actresses, Pam Grier amongst them, that made the martial arts film its own kind of art itself. With us today, we have the founder of the Martial Arts Film Festival, Leo Ramos. Leo, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing well, Seth. Thanks for having me on today.
It's absolutely our pleasure. Leo, please tell us, where do you come from and a little bit about your origin story?
Well, I've been working in television and film for the last 15 years. And growing up, I was always a huge fan of martial arts, even though I'm not an actual practitioner. And a couple years ago, I got together with some friends and we're looking for a martial arts film festival here in the U.S. And to our surprise, one didn't exist. These films are occasionally included in an Asian film festival or an action film festival, but there was no festival strictly dedicated to martial arts movies. So after a little bit of cajoling each other and teasing, we decided to actually put one together. And here we are 2 years later.
So 2 years it's been in full operation.
Well, it's 2 years it's been in planning, and we actually had to delay the event due to the writer strike and the actor strike almost a year ago now. And so that's how we ended up doing it just recently in May.
Now, what was the fascination with putting on the Martial Arts Film Festival? Was it just so people can get more exposed to some of the love of martial arts, or was it because the absence of it as in other film festivals?
Well, it's a combination of both. Definitely because there's no festival dedicated to these films. We felt there was a need for, like, there were enough fans who would enjoy these movies. But beyond that, as a person in the entertainment industry, from way back, there used to be, this thing called a film that people shoot on digital machines right now, actually used to be shot on what we call film, a celluloid-based film that had to be processed and developed and could not be exposed to light unless you wanted that image on the film. So our nonprofit is dedicated to preserving the actual films, as many as we can track down, so we can make those films available to fans, to academics, to historians, just to kind of preserve the culture. And in doing so, spark a conversation, because martial arts, we believe in its purest form, is about self-learning and mutual respect.
Self-learning and mutual respect.
Yeah, I mean,
Leo.
So many of the movies, play on this trope of, the revenge story, or, my school is better than your school, or, kung fu is better than karate. But if you ever talk to a real live martial artist, that's generally not the point at all. The point is, to improve yourself, to make yourself a better athlete, a better person, and really, especially when you're walking into someone else's school, to really, show some deference and respect and look at it as an opportunity to both communicate and to learn.
Now, Leo, where is the film festival held?
The film festival is held in Tempe, Arizona.
And in the last 2 years, you've seen a growth in the participants?
Well, we've just completed our very first year, so we're anticipating a big growth next year, because so many people really enjoyed the event, enjoyed the red carpet. We had some classic movies and some very modern movies, and right now, people are just discovering the event as we post to social media, as we update our website, as the people who participated share on their own social media and in their own, personal networks. We had a film contest, so all the contest award winners, are going back and telling their communities. We had contest entrants from as far as India and Australia, the UK and the Philippines, as well as several from the US.
So the martial arts film industry itself, it goes across the different ethnicities and the different continents as far as the entrants. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, absolutely, because it's, you know, um, an average or a passive fan would think, there's karate and there's kung fu and that's it. But really, each region of the world, the Philippines, Korea, Thailand, um, South Africa, North Africa, they all have their own uh, indigenous fighting styles. And those fighting styles collectively uh, basically make up, the general term of martial arts, the art of fighting, whether it's with, open hands or weapons that's unique to a particular region.
So some of the reason for the film festival is also to expose them to some of these various styles that come from these diverse places, as well as my understanding.
Yes, absolutely. Like a lot of people have never heard of the Eskrima sticks and martial arts of the Philippines. And it's odd to me because Dan Inosanto, who's probably the world's best, Philippine fighter, was also a very close friend and student of Bruce Lee. And his daughter actually carries, Bruce Lee's name as her middle name, Diana Lee Inosanto. And his Eskrima stick techniques are actually featured in Game of Death, which was the last movie that Bruce Lee made before he passed on.
Oh wow! Wow! And so, was Bruce Lee one of your inspirations for some of your love for martial arts?
Oh, absolutely. It's as a child, I was just fascinated with it, but as a grown adult, understanding more of his philosophy and that this man with only 5 movies his entire life launched a global industry. Like he was a martial artist, but he was also a big personality. He was a star in the truest sense of the word, almost as in it's kind of like James Dean, or in today's terms, Brad Pitt is a star. Charlize Theron is, a star. Bruce Lee, in his short career, reached that level, and he launched this global industry, which may not otherwise have been launched.
And it's so interesting when I see some of the actors who do martial arts in some of the adventure movies these days. I definitely can see the inspiration from Bruce Lee, who really helped to launch that. And then some of the great participants we know, Chuck Norris, Steven Seagal. There's an actor, I hate that I'm forgetting his name. He's an African-American actor. He was in a number of Bruce Lee martial arts movies as well. But he went on to some of his own movies like Black Dynamite and a number of those. So
that would be Jim Kelly.
That is Jim Kelly. Thank you. Thank you
Yes,
very much. Yes, Jim Kelly. And as a kid, I remember looking at them, and they were just as significant to me as Superman or Batman superheroes. But
absolutely.
The difference was, this was more real because we could see them. It's why I even chose to take karate and Muay Thai, because in seeing these incredible feats that they did, but also just seeing how there was such a self-respect in learning the artistry itself. And there was a beauty in the majestic nature of the films themselves. I think the last one where I felt really did it justice. Well, there are two kind of different styles, but it was, oh no, I'm losing it. Flying Tiger, Crouching Tiger.
Crouching Tiger.
And yes, I think that was the last time I saw it displayed so beautifully in a film form. But am I correct that was not done on film? And that's what makes the difference between that movie and your film festival. Am I correct?
You know what? I don't want to give out bad information. I'm not sure. I suspect because that was in the 2000s that it was probably shot digitally. But that movie in particular, starring Chow Yun-fat and Michelle Yeoh, was the first foreign language film to win the Best Picture for the General Academy Award in Hollywood.
Oh, dig it. I don't think a lot of people knew that, but it was done so magnificently. There were so many things about the cinematography, the
Absolutely.
choreography, and even the story itself. It was just, I remember thinking that was such a great heir apparent and evolution to the films we used to see. And then my brothers, both my older brothers, used to mimic the lip reading of the martial arts films, as we all did when they would come out, and some of the um, mouthing of the words were not completely on time or something. And that seems to be, some people get that as the way martial arts films were filmed, but it wasn't the case. Am I correct?
No, that wasn't the case at all. That, again, and I'm old enough to remember that nostalgia of the overdub audio being out of sync with the actual
Yes.
video. But there was a mad rush to get as many of these movies as possible back in the 70s, overdub them, and get them to the American audience. The very first one ever shown was Five Fingers of Death, and that was shown in, I believe, in Times Square in New York City. And from Five Fingers of Death to, Enter the Dragon being released with Warner Brothers, just, the 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 audience desire for martial arts movies just exploded in the 70s.
Why do you think that was?
I wish I knew. I'm, not a historian. I mean, I know my own personal connection to the, in a sense, the underdog, as well as, like I said, just the star power and charisma of Bruce Lee. And it was something different, right? It's something you didn't see every day. Something that was, exciting and foreign, but also, you know, you could, in your own ego, you could attain it. You could take karate lessons, you could take kung fu lessons, you could actually try to be like these people, if you put in the time and the discipline and the practice.
It's why I fell in love with it. Was, as I mentioned, with that, because it was a great deal, so much beauty and eloquence to it. And as a dude and as a young kid, you could feel that you're learning this and also being able to defend yourself. But the self discipline is something majestical, I must say.
Absolutely. And even today, that there's still, you would think after 50 years there's nothing new to be done. But the winner of our Best Picture award, 1% Warrior, and the director Yuta Yamaguchi from Japan, um, we were honored to have him join us at the film festival. And the fight choreography and the cinematography, that he created in this movie, which he shot in only 2 weeks, it's out of this world. It's really incredible. I couldn't
So the
imagine
film,
ever trying to do something like that in just 2 weeks.
absolutely. The films that you spotlight at the film festival, they get major distribution, or are they mainly with independent outlets? How do they go after the festival comes about? What is the next step?
Well, a traditional film festival largely pulls, the movies it screens from its own film contest, which we did do that. But because martial arts is a genre that has, a niche of fans, we also want to highlight movies that didn't get a theatrical release in the US. So a lot of our nominees for, these professional movies had already been released, like 1% Warrior, like Mutant Ghost War Girl, like Sakura, um, like Night of the Assassin. Like there's some really incredible sword work and sword choreography going on with Korean filmmakers these days. And our team, being almost fanatics, because I don't actually practice, right, or go, walk around in a ninja suit or a samurai suit, but really, really deep into the fandom of this. We've seen all these movies, in the foreign language, in Korean, in Japan, in Tagalog, it's Filipino language. And we just want to be able to put them up on the big screen and allow American fans to see these movies and experience them.
Now, some of the people who attend the film festival, or at least attended this last one, are some of them Cho Yun Fat and some of the other Michelle Yeoh, or any names that we might recognize, or well, unless you're, so I might recognize them, whereas John Q. Public might not. But some of them independent actors from the movies that are featured at the festival.
Well, we were very fortunate to get some legendary actors and probably the best Wing Chun practitioner in the world. So Bruce Lee famously studied under Ip Man Wing Chun, and the current globally recognized as probably the best Wing Chun practitioner in the world is Master Samuel Kwok. And he studied under the sons of Ip Man and, teaches Ip Man Wing Chun. And so he actually made an appearance with us. And then there are people who people will recognize, like Ron Van Cleef, who Bruce Lee dubbed as the Black Dragon, Fred the Hammer Williamson from 70s and 80s movies fame.
Oh, yes.
Grandmaster Eric Lee, who's from Big Trouble in Little China. Don the Dragon
Great.
Wilson, who has 11 world championships, but also Don has probably done over 40 or 50 movies. His movie career spanned 30 years now. We were also fortunate to get some real Hollywood legends that came through that are more behind the scenes, but in line with our martial arts film festival, we also support women in action movies. And so Melissa Stubbs, who is a legendary stunt coordinator, stunt director, a member of the DGA in Hollywood, she joined us. Director April Wright, who actually has done several movies, including a documentary on, it's actually called Stunt Women, The Untold Hollywood Story. We screened her movie, and she shared her experience and knowledge about stunt women in Hollywood and the challenges these women who take the same risks that men take in doing stunts have faced over the years. So we want to emphasize and share with the world these experts in, women in action in Hollywood and these martial arts experts. And, we were very fortunate to have the experts and the celebrities that we did this year.
For sure. I'd imagine they would feel especially honored, in particular, because this festival itself is dedicated to their artistry. And it's similar to a Black film festival or a Hispanic film festival, but this particular genre, I think it's loved, loved, but it having a film festival for itself, it leans itself to, it's not only loved, but appreciated. And that's one of the reasons. So in you finding it or getting it started, there's no other martial arts film festivals like yours. Am I understanding correctly?
Not in the U.S. And as far as we can tell, there are only a handful of them around the world, all under 20 years old.
Wow. Why do you think that is?
I really couldn't tell you. Maybe like other niche markets, it's just people who are doing these festivals didn't feel it was important enough. Like there are a lot of women's film festivals, but there isn't a current women's film festival that focuses just on women in action movies. So we added that as kind of a sister event, a track within our festival, so we could really focus on, women doing all these incredibly entertaining things in action movies. Another thing, as we grow, we want to be able to bring these filmmakers from around the world and connect them with the Netflix, the Amazon, the big Hollywood studios who may not be out in the Philippines or in Australia scouting, looking for these movies. So they can actually, make a living, keep making these movies, and we can bring this entertainment to the U.S. audience.
So some of the current situations with some of the newer versions of adventure movies that utilize martial arts in there, do you find there's some that are more in your liking, aligned with the old school martial arts films, or more of them just nouveau and too much CGI? What are you thinking about the current state of movies, mainstream, that utilize that?
Well, I love them all. I love anything that will, promote martial arts because it's the seed of a conversation, right? So one of the panels we're going to be doing next year is what is a martial arts movie? Because up until the 90s, it was pretty clear what we actually generally now call Hong Kong cinema is really the core and the epicenter of what we also refer to generally as martial arts movies. And then there was Kurosawa and the Japanese samurai and ninja movies. But as we got through, many people like to say The Matrix was the movie that kind of shifted the definition because martial arts as a fighting style is so prevalent in The Matrix. But is The Matrix a martial arts movie?
Good question.
It's a savior story. It's a science fiction movie for sure, but is it a martial arts movie? Are the Jason Bourne movies martial arts movies? So we're gonna begin to explore this question of what is a martial arts movie, and I suspect over the years we'll have this panel again, and it will become defined more by, well, what time period are we speaking of? Because there's still one of the movies we nominated, Mutant Ghost War Girl, science fiction context in the movie for sure, but given the fighting and the pacing, and it was made in Beijing, clearly a martial arts movie. So why is it that one really has a sense and feel of a martial arts movie, but The Matrix doesn't necessarily feel that way? And that's just something, we're going to bring in experts and let fans and the audience and the experts explore.
I think that'll be a fascinating conversation. I'm curious. So, in your perspective, what is a true martial arts film? And give us an example.
I will defer to Bruce Lee's definition of martial arts movie. And he defined martial arts as any fighting style that can be replicated and taught. So that's coming from Bruce Lee, is a very broad definition. And in a sense, for our discussion, it might even be too broad, because that means anytime there's fighting, it must be a martial arts movie. But traditionally, martial arts movies are light on plot and story and heavy on the fighting and the action. And the ones we grew up with, the Shaw Brothers, in 70s and 80s, the fighting started at the beginning and continued all the way through. And it almost didn't matter what the story was, because it was usually a revenge story. But there were cool weapons and there were cool moves, and tiger style or animal style or praying mantis style, or the samurais and the swords, or the ninjas and all their different weapons. But it was always about the fighting. And then there's another really generally accepted traditional martial arts movie called a wuxia movie, which is basically the period pieces. So you look at Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, you look at Jet Li's Fearless, or
I love Fearless. That was a great movie. Fearless was incredible.
Or another Jet Li movie, Hero, where you have this incredible cinematography, but these are period pieces, and they explore. I don't pretend to be an expert about this. I'm still, after all these years, learning about Chinese history and mythology, and where these stories come from. But where we in the U.S. have the Old West, and old Western stories, and the lonely gunslinger, that kind of thing. So the Chinese have this wuxia, this romanticized, do what you want, take what you want lifestyle of fighters traveling the countryside. And so they, Hero and Fearless is actually based on a true story. That was a real character, Huo Wenjia, who really did found I forget the actual name of the kung fu school that he founded to basically unite China against all invaders. Um, but yeah, so there's wuxia and there are these '70s movies. But that the definition of what a martial arts movie really is going to continue to evolve as the technology and culture and our interactions as people evolve.
If you had to name your Ramos favorite martial arts film, what would that be? That would help us get some direction as far as what you see as
Enter the
the
Dragon,
best.
hands down. Bruce
The
Lee,
dragon.
Enter the
Oh, yeah.
Dragon. Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon launched the global martial arts movie industry, hands down. That now some of these newer movies have made me question what's going to be in my top 10 anymore, because there's some really good movies that have come out in the last 5-10 years. But still, Enter the Dragon is the best, in my humble opinion, the best martial arts movie ever made.
Bruce Lee being your number one male martial art actor.
Definitely. And there.
And what about?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I said, and there are many really good martial arts actors, and there are actually, at this point now, some legendary martial arts actors like Jackie Chan, like Jet Li, like Donnie Yen,
Oh yeah.
Growing as their careers grow, I'm sure they'll become legendary. Tony Jaa, Michael Jai White, Iko Uwais, Hiroyuki Sanada. Joe Haslam. There are a lot of very good actors who actually are better martial artists. What was unique about Bruce Lee is he was not only the best martial artist and in his time, but he was also a great actor and had the charisma and had, the that it factor that so many. There are plenty of world champion martial artists, and many of them never make it into the movies. And of the ones that do, they don't have the careers that Jet Li and Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung and Donnie Yen have had, or Chuck Norris. They don't. You have to have more than just being a great martial artist to be a martial arts movie star.
You have to have that charisma. I think Uma Thurman, to me, in Kill Bill, he seemed very equal to a female version of a Pam Grier or a Michelle Yeoh as far as her dedication to the role in Kill Bill, which to me, if we're talking martial arts films, and I want to get back to Michael Jai White as well, but to me, Kill Bill was Quentin had that kind of appreciation for martial arts anyway. But Kill Bill seems to have captured some of what I felt was the essence of why we fell in love with martial arts films to me. So it did have a plot and a story, but the martial arts stood out to me. Would that be the same for you, or you're in disagreement?
Well, no, the Kill Bill is a great movie, and there are a lot of references to martial arts movies from the 60s and 70s that are used in that movie. I don't know enough about it to know if Uma Thurman actually learned and practiced, or if Uma Thurman had a stunt person. I honestly don't know. A little bit of the research I've done is Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne actually trained for 6 months now to do the first Matrix movie, and they trained with one of the greatest martial arts movie directors and stunt directors ever, Wen Wu Ping. But that training for 6 months didn't make them martial artists, but it did make them look believable on screen as the stars of this movie. Yeah. So Uma Thurman's definitely believable on screen.
For sure. Now, speaking about Uma Thurman, are there female actresses and or martial arts / actresses that you would find up there with Bruce Lee in movies that we might know, or just maybe movies we should discover?
Well, I don't know that anybody will ever equal Bruce Lee's just gift of talent. But there, right now, Michelle Yeoh has had a legendary career as a martial artist, and more recently just as an actress. She's a dedicated actress on top of, being in martial arts and martial arts movies. But there are, like I said, quite a few of the movies that we nominated this year. And forgive me, I can't remember the names of all these actresses that are really incredible martial artists. Shadow Strays, which is available on a streamer. Um, The Furies, with directed by and starred Veronica Nho out of Vietnam. Mutant Ghost Wardrobe. I keep coming back to that. Again, forgive me, I don't remember all of these actresses' names, but there are some really incredible female martial artists in these movies. But also, you know, on the other side of women in action movies, just outside of martial arts, we're going to continue to highlight those movies, and not just the stars like Kate Beckinsale, Charlize Theron, Halle Berry, but the stunt women who are, doing those roles. And I don't know enough to know, how many of the stunts does Halle Berry do versus her stunt person, right? Like she just did a movie called The Union, is out on streaming right now, which very good movie. She's a secret agent, and I think Mark Wahlberg is her co-star. But there are a lot of action scenes and fighting scenes, and how much of that she did versus how much her stunt person did is a great question, and it's something that's going to be highlighted coming up in the, I believe it's the 2026 Oscars. So our guest Melissa Stubbs was part of a team over the past 5 or 10 years that's finally convinced the Oscars to create an Academy Award for stunt design. And the first time, and the first time that will be awarded, I believe, is going to be in 2026. So we want to keep, we want to keep shining the light on, both the women in the action movies who are the stars, but also the stunt women. And that's one of the reasons we partnered with the National Breast Cancer Foundation to do fundraising for breast cancer awareness. And so part of the proceeds from our film festival will be going to the National Breast Cancer Foundation. And even now on our website, we have certain items, certain promotional items, cups, pens, drawstring bags that are pink, that, all the proceeds will be donating to the National Breast Cancer Foundation.
Well, that's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. Now, if you had to see 5 years down the road, you see the Martial Arts Film Festival being where?
Well, I think we're always going to be in Arizona. But I also...
May I ask, why is that? Why Arizona?
Well, Arizona is my home. So I've got family here, and it's the place where we've done the first one, and just the local film community has been so supportive that as this grows, as the revenue and the benefits to the local economy grows, I definitely want to keep our core film festival here. But I would also love to do a satellite 1 or 2 day event at a different time of year, moving around the country and potentially moving around the world. I'd love to do an event in Tokyo one day. I'd love to do an event, in Hong Kong one day, in New York City, in Times Square, in Chicago, in Miami. And so that's already 7 years of festivals. So I have a lot of work to
do. And then top male performer. Now that you mentioned Bruce Lee, circling back to Michael Jai White, I feel that he's up there with our Jackie Chan and Chow Fat Yun and some of those cats. But I think, and I'm curious if this is what you find as well, I think because of his doing mainstream movies, it kind of reduces his prominence in the martial arts area, because he's also done mainstream movies. Would you say that that's somewhat hindered his success being recognized as one of the top martial art actors?
Well, maybe indirectly. I wouldn't say his career with Tyler Perry and the other movies that he's done has hindered his notoriety. It's really a function of just, you can only do so many movies, in a year. And he's a prolific actor. He's a great actor, but he's
For
also
sure.
he's a legitimate karate world champion and martial artist. So, he's done movies with Tony Jaa and Iko Uwais, and he's done plenty of action and martial arts movies. But it's purely a function of how much publicity those movies get. Do those movies, again, do they come into the theaters of the American audience, or they go direct to streaming? The movie distribution system for audiences has changed so much in the last 5 years.
In what way?
Over
In what way? What do you mean?
Well, with the pandemic, all movie theaters were shut down.
Something happened with your audio, Leo.
Oh, sorry. I said, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but it's a little off kilter.
Okay, so let me try this.
I'm going to pause for a second.
Whole pandemic, all in-person movie theaters were shut down, and the movie industry relies on ticket sales. So there was a shift during the pandemic to releasing new movies over streamers, direct video on demand. And once we came out of the pandemic, the Hollywood studios and distributors realized they could generate revenue and not necessarily incur the expense of marketing a theatrical release. So it's more and more rare for smaller budgeted movies to get theatrical releases these days. Now, we switch that to companies making movies all around the world, and these martial arts movies, they definitely don't have the hundreds of millions and billions of dollars that Hollywood studios use to market their movies and do theatrical releases all around the world. So we're hopeful that we can be a conduit for many of these movies that American audiences would never see, and get a chance to see them at least once in a movie theater setting.
I get that. And so with funding the direct-to-video martial arts films and major release martial arts films, where is the connect? Is there one?
I honestly don't know. Like I ask myself that every day. If I knew the secret to that, I'd be out making my own martial arts movies.
So besides Enter the Dragon, there was I want to remember Morgan Freeman and I can't believe his name is escaping me. But Morgan Freeman, the actor, he's a martial artist as well, and he was trained, and they called him Dog.
Really? I did not know Morgan Freeman was a martial artist.
No, he's not. He was in a film, Jet Li, that's the actor. So the film, Jet Li was trained. Morgan Freeman was raising his daughter, and Jet Li was captured as a prisoner, and the guy who raised him from a child used him as a dog to sick on people. And it's an underrated martial arts film because it also tells the story of him being somewhat chained as a slave, so to speak, and as an attack person. And I'm forgetting the name of it all of a sudden, but it was a great movie. It wasn't Fearless, but Jet Li. Do you know the film I'm talking about?
I do know the film you're talking about. Morgan Freeman's character was a piano tuner and he was blind.
Yes. And that film, to me, I thought, reason why I brought that up was because Jet Li, I thought, brought some of the emotionality that Bruce Lee could bring to his characters in martial arts films, but it had a acting position in the film without taking away from his martial arts stylism.
Yes,
and
definitely.
Okay, good. So you see where I'm going with that, and I think it's the combination of those type of films that sometimes I saw that Michael Jai White has done also, where the actor sometimes who is a martial arts star, their martial arts acclaim, it gets somewhat overshadowed by the fact that they are an actor as well, or that acting has taken a part of that. Do you see that? Do you see at the Martial Arts Film Festival some of that intersection as well? in some of the newer films?
Well, definitely, it's like I said, I'm just beginning to learn these new actors and their careers, but it seems clear, like having worked in film and television, um, and understanding, how editing is done and cuts, I can get a sense of where I think they had to use, or they could have used a stunt person, or where they really it had to be the main actor in a particular scene or for a particular shot. And it's just really incredible. It is. And you can also tell, like, based on number of lines of dialogue, based on um, just the emotional conveyance of an actor versus their martial arts performance, um, how that goes. And it's, there's a wide range of, acting ability and martial arts ability within all of these films, from Japan, from South Korea, from, Hong Kong and mainland China and the Philippines and Singapore. And there's too many available for us to ever show all the time. So we try to curate the best of them and give the audiences here a chance to see them.
Now, I'm curious. We mentioned Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon as winning an Oscar. Is there a particular, or maybe two, martial arts films you felt deserved an Oscar nod and did not get it?
I'd really have to think back. I don't know all the criteria that the Academy and members of the Academy use in their determinations, but perhaps for cinematography, I don't know if Fearless or Hero were nominated, but they have just really beautiful, wild and wide cinematography, and then just the color choices and the grand scope of the epic nature of these films. It it could be, it could be they weren't presented to even be considered. Like, I don't understand the entire process, so I don't want to say the Academy missed something necessarily, but there are certainly some films, if presented, I think would get equal consideration as Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon did.
And so, your best film currently, or most recently, most up to date, that's a martial arts film. Since you mentioned of the past one being Enter the Dragon, what would your favorite new martial arts film be that we should check out?
Well, some of my favorite new ones, definitely 1% Warrior, Yudai Yamaguchi, director. The Night of the Assassin, a Korean movie. The Swordsman, another Korean movie. Eye for an Eye, The Blind Swordsman, a movie from Beijing. And I don't remember the name of the actor, but the lead actor in Eye for an Eye, The Blind Swordsman, was a child actor with Jet Li in the Once Upon a Time in China series. So this young man, who's now an adult, has spent his whole life in martial arts movies and has now come into his own as a leading actor and incredible martial artist.
And female martial artists, who besides Michelle Yeoh?
Besides Michelle Yeoh, I'm see, and I have to go back and learn all these names, but Veronica Ngo, from Vietnam, as director and actress, and the martial arts, the women who starred in a movie called Shadow Strays, the women who starred in a movie called Furies, and the women who starred in a movie called Mutant Ghost War Girl, all really incredible martial artists who have young careers, so they don't have the longevity that Michelle Yeoh and her legendary career has, but they certainly have that potential.
Absolutely. Where would you like to see the festival go in addition to the traveling?
Well, I just, to grow, the festival, a good friend of mine told me the South by Southwest Festival started out with under 1,000 people attending, and in a few hotel rooms. And I think in our first event, we've surpassed that with being in a theater, and we had 3 screens, and we did something else unique as we're trying to bridge the gap between practicing martial artists and movie fans. On our last day of the event, we actually had 5 live martial arts demonstrations. We had a kung fu school, 9 Dragons Kung Fu. We had a karate school with Sensei Kinitada. We had the Jay Page's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school came down, and they gave us both a Jiu-Jitsu demonstration and a Muay Thai demonstration. And we had another Kung Fu school do a demonstration for us. So these were live, open hand and weapons demonstrations that, for the film fans to be able to say, okay, I've watched all these movies, now I can actually see real people doing these movements. And for practicing martial artists to kind of get them exposed to the movies, because the people who practice martial arts don't necessarily watch martial arts movies. They don't necessarily understand or know about, the behind the scenes of how do you make a movie, how do you get a shot, what editing is, what animation is. So we're really trying to bridge the gap between these 2 different audiences and show them how much they actually have in common and, can share with each other.
Fantastic. Well, Leo, I got to say, for me as a childhood fanatic, obsessed with martial arts movies as a kid, and my brothers who used to bring me to those, and even dating myself, going to the drive-in and seeing a martial arts movie was one of the best things ever. It was one of those incredible things, seeing you go in the car and you drive in, and I was really young at the time, but seeing the martial arts up on the screen like that was such an enthralling process for me. And that's what I think gave me my love for martial arts, along with the fact that Bruce Lee was a big part of my older brothers' lives. And that was the burgeoning of the martial arts films during that time. So we are incredibly pleased to have you with us today to share some of my own love and your love for these films and the film festival itself.
Well, Seth, we're going to have to get you to come out and do a live remote next year.
I would love that. We are going to save the date. I would love to do that. And I kid you not, I'm such a super fan. It's not funny.
No, that's great. That's great. Well, our Instagram is at Martial Arts Film Festival, no spaces. And we also have an Instagram at Women Action Stars. And, we encourage you to, let your audience know to, help us spread breast cancer awareness, because unlike everybody in October, breast cancer doesn't take 11 months off. So
that's right. Very valid point. Very valid point.
So, that's why we're doing this now as part of our film festival effort to support the National Breast Cancer Foundation. And, check out our websites, and, if you can make a donation, great. If you want to, get a gift, make a bigger donation. We have, certain levels of gifts that are aligned with certain donations, and we appreciate it. And that will be at www.womenactionstars.com.
Fantastic. Leo J. Ramos, thank you so much, my good man, for bringing this to our audience. And I definitely would love for them to check out all of your contact information. And I really want, by next year time, when I come out there for the live remote, that we have thousands upon thousands of people to appreciate this art form, because I do think it's because it is just like a great art painting. If people would give it half the opportunity, this is just such an incredible beauty to it. So thank you so much, Leo, for being with us today.
Great. Thank you, Seth. Take care.
Absolutely my pleasure. And again, audience, my goal is to be able to promote this revolution that we talk about. The revolution is the love-volution we're all wanting. If you want love, let's make the revolution happen, filled with love. Touch base with someone today and let them know that you love them. I'm your boy, Seth Guru Baxter from Maker's Bar. We're so glad you took time out with us today. Peace and goodwill to all of you. See you next time.